What's up? I'm Cliff Chance, and I'm here to answer the question, is it any good? This video, we're going to talk about the Sir Elton John biopic, Rocketman. Uh, the plot of this movie, it starts off with him entering a treatment facility, and then just kind of him telling his story. It starts off childhood through, I want to say, uh, late 80s, early 90s, and that's where the movie ends. It ends before he writes any of the stuff for Lion King and beyond that. Uh, First of all, I'm just going to tell you this movie, yes, it is a musical biopic, but it is also a musical. They throw a lot of his songs into the plot, and uh, Taron Egerton and a couple of the others sing these songs as throughout the movie, break out a couple song and dance numbers. For the most part, that worked for me. But let's get into the good. The cast in this movie was phenomenal. They all came and gave really good performances. Taron Egerton as Sir Elton John was amazing. He does I think he does, if not all, most of the singing in this movie, which he does a phenomenal job. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think he actually does a better job portraying Elton John than Rami Malek does as Freddie Mercury, and I love that performance by Rami Malek. I'm going to try to keep the comparisons to Bohemian Rhapsody to a minimum, but that's going to be kind of hard since they're both British rockers that came out around the same time. Um, but Taron Egerton does a phenomenal job. They dressed him up just like the old costumes. He does most of the singing. He did sang "Still Standing" in the movie Sing, the animated movie that came out probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure how old it is. And, as an Elton John, so I don't know if that's what got the ball rolling. But he does a great job in this movie. Jamie Bell, who I've always been a fan of, even when he's in bad movies, he's generally one of the better parts of that movie. He played Ben Grimm in Fantastic Four, that very bad Fantastic Four. But I liked his performance in that. And here he plays Bernie Taupin. I don't know if I say his last name right. Uh, Elton songwriter, and I think we'll say best friend. They have great chemistry together. He just does a phenomenal job. Richard Madden as John Reed. It's a little weird because in Bohemian Rhapsody, John Reed was their manager for a little while, and he was played by the actor that plays Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. And in that movie, he seemed like a good guy, and in this movie, he's kind of a dick. And then he's also played by another Game of Thrones actor, which I thought was funny. So I don't know which movie got his was more accurate with the portrayal of that person. I don't know if he was a nicer guy or maybe he was with Elton John a lot more, so he saw a different side of him than Queen would have seen of him. I don't know. And then Bryce Dallas Howard as Elton's mom. She does a great job. She's an American actress. You're sitting there waiting for her accent to slip. It never does. She makes you feel a little sad for her going through watching her son be an alcoholic, but then at the same time hating her because part of her is the reason he's doing the stuff that he's doing. She just does a phenomenal job too. This movie, they seem to go into the his sexuality a little bit more than Bohemian Rhapsody went in with Freddie Mercury, maybe because Elton's more of an in-your-face kind of guy than Freddie Mercury was. He was very more private. Again, trying to keep the comparisons down to a minimum as best I can. It's hard. And then they go into his alcohol and drug use a lot more, which worked. I liked that, but at times it was a bit too much. So I can use that to transition to the bad of the movie. First of all, there's scenes where it's like, okay, they really didn't need that. We got the point. You don't need to keep showing it. So it kind of made the second act of the movie drag on a little bit. Kind of got a little boring in certain parts. And it was just like, okay, you showed us enough. Move on to something else. And I think from what I've seen, a lot of people enjoyed the part of him as a child. I thought they stayed on that a little bit too long. All in all, it was a little bit longer than it really needed to be. The entire movie itself, there's probably about 20 minutes they could have cut. And then where I did like the musical aspect, I thought it works well with a person like Elton John and telling his story. For the most part, I liked, but there were a couple scenes, a couple musical numbers that kind of took you out of the movie. It just was like, okay, I like what you're doing, but you didn't really need to do that here or that. Like at certain parts, were just took you away from the movie. But for the most part, I really did enjoy this movie. I thought it was a great telling of a story. I thought the actors all played their parts well. They all sang beautifully for the musical aspect of it. All in all, I think that I enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody more than I enjoyed this movie. I want to see this one again. Also, the audience in the theater that I saw it in was kind of distracting. So I need to see it again, just kind of see if I maybe would enjoy it more, being able to actually watch it, not have to listen to somebody give their commentary throughout most of the movie. But I'm gonna give this movie a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it's a pretty good biopic. It's not as good as some other ones, but I think Taron Egerton does a phenomenal job as Elton John. Uh, and honestly, that's probably one of the reasons I'm giving a little bit higher score too, with that and the entire cast, not just him. But that's my take on Rocketman. Let me know what you guys thought about in the comments below, and like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Cliff Chance. Is it any good?